maintain homeostasis? Questions? Take about a minute and discuss that with the person sitting next to you. Because you've got that question on your study guide.
I think so.
Okay.
It's negative and it's good. So that's fine, and then just let's do this is like the 10 is positive, which is content you others is typically bad. So that we can talk about things to check for in terms
the receptor and like checks out the values of our talk about like sodium, right? So if it detects that your sodium is too high, then that information is like the control center starts to initiate a response by comparing it to like normal values in the body. And then if they decide that we can do something about it, they basically just have to respond to like
Okay, so
medications.
if we look at the study guide that you got, and it has on there, define homeostasis. And you're looking at that. Now, how would you define homeostasis?
Is something as it's supposed to be, like where it's balanced.
Okay, we want things in balance. We want to maintain what they call the internal environment. So now, if we think about homeostasis, if we look at it as homeostasis and the fact that it is maintaining that internal environment, and we don't just apply it to blood pressure and temperature, okay? It's applied, like I said before, it's applied to gases in the system. It's like the pH, the electrolytes. Can you think of why that might be so important? We would not be able to have stability. When homeostasis is out of balance, things go wrong in the body. And that is not good. That's when disease can set in, sickness can set in, chronic conditions can set in. This is when things go wrong within the body.
I have a question. You know how receptors monitor like value of like a variable?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if like the receptor is, I guess, broken?
Then the homeostasis, depending upon what it might be, okay? You can, for example, have issues with thyroid hormone being out of balance, but you can have surgeries, you can take medications, and the body can somewhat stay within homeostatic levels, okay? Sometimes, though, something can go wrong and there is no way to correct what is controlling that particular chemical in the body. For example, a lot of times when people did have thyroid problems and they had their thyroid removed, because that was pretty common until probably 30 years ago. It was pretty common for people to have their thyroid gland removed. In the very beginning, because on the back of the thyroid are these glands called parathyroid glands, which help control calcium levels. And one of the things about the body and electrolytes, the body's going to work very hard to keep them in acceptable levels. And they would remove the thyroid gland, those parathyroids would get removed, and there was nothing that could be done, and the person died. So that right there is a good example of how if the receptor is wrong and it can't be fixed, that's very detrimental, I think, you know. So this maintaining of homeostasis is keeping us well, all right? When you think about that in our class, okay, we're learning what should be the norm, okay? As we go through our topics, my goal is to teach you what is the norm. But, for the most part, if you're going into the medical field, everybody that may be coming in as a patient, is everything going to be within the norm?
No.
No, okay? So if you know what the norm is and patients present, you'll be able to see some type of pathology is present. Pathology meaning something wrong. So, another example of the negative feedback, once again, dealing with the heart, and we have to realize the body changes, okay? For the most part, okay? The body does this, and everything stays pretty much normal because the body adjusts to meet the demands. The blood pressure will change, the heart rate will change, blood flow will change, respiration rates will change. All that changes. It changes minute to minute. As you're sitting here right now, and we're thinking, oh, 8:24, she's got to talk for how much longer? And you know, and all that sort of stuff. And then we get to break time. We're going to get up. We're going to move. We're going to be increasing that heart rate. We're going to be increasing that blood flow. We're going to increase blood pressure. Body's going to adjust. We'll come back in. We'll sit back down, or we'll do a lab, whatever the case might be. Body adjusts. It's when pathology is present that sometimes this doesn't occur as effectively. Not saying that it's always bad, okay? Because certain things can go wrong and you're still pretty healthy and moving and keeping up with things, okay? So for the most part, the body's meeting those demands. Positive feedback. This feeds the cycle. If something is occurring And the cycle that it uses is positive feedback. This continues to feed the cycle. In normal, healthy individuals, this is usually not normal. Okay, it's a very unusual situation because it takes us away from homeostasis. The problem with positive feedback, the systems in our bodies that are dependent on this tend to end up, if the process isn't stopped, okay, you cannot stop the cycle, death is what usually is the result. So, we don't want a lot of that, okay? Now, an example of a positive feedback system that is normal for the human body, childbirth. The entire time of pregnancy, the body sees the offspring as a foreign object, and it wants to expel it. When it finally does get to a point that that can occur, if you've ever had, if you've ever been pregnant or know someone who's pregnant, and if you've been around them at the time of childbirth, this process tends to start out kind of weak. That contraction starts, and it's kind of like, oh, that was interesting. I wonder what that was. And it progresses, and progresses to the point, most of the time, they're screaming at the end, and baby comes. Because contractions have gotten stronger. Once again, we do have a receptor, we have a control center, and we have an effector. All right? The uterus sends signals to the brain releases a chemical, the chemical acts on the uterus to make the contractions. And if everything goes okay, baby is born. So that would be a positive feedback cycle. Other ways that we have positive feedback, at the time of a hemorrhage, like a really bad cut or anything like that, hemorrhaging is causing us to, of course, lose blood, which is going to definitely play a part on the heart, blood pressure, that sort of thing. And we're going to end up with the situation where the body is trying to stop the blood flow. But if the hemorrhaging doesn't stop within, or if that hemorrhaging cannot be stopped within an acceptable time frame, well, because the body's working so hard to meet that demand, death occurs. There's other things that are taking place too, but the body can't meet that demand. So positive feedback, the one that I can think of that is a good one is childbirth. Any questions so far? So, take about a minute and discuss that next question about what is the negative, what is positive, and their effects. Discuss it with your neighbor, and I'll come back to that.
There's a fine line between positive and negative. What is the negative and positive? Because